Hey everyone, once again, it's Two Noobs Talking with our favorite clips from the 2020 year with my friend John Tracy and Matt Craig. We hope you enjoy these clips from all of our guests that joined us this year. Major General Wes Craig, U.S. Army retired, Mikey Bowles, Steve Murray, and the king of views, Tom Holzerman. So we're taking a little bit of a break, John and I, or, pretty much like with News of the Day, we're putting that in the can. This is all about really the reason why we have Tom on is one, we want to like promote a little bit about his blog that he has, and then also we're going to get into some pro wrestling talk, where we're seeing the industry going, where why we became pro wrestling fans. All three of us are pro wrestling fans, and we follow it, and things along those lines. So Tom, really, John alerted this to me, and I didn't know this actually going all the way back, but you've been a pretty active writer and have an active blog called The Mental Break. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? Why did you decide to make the blog, things like that? Go ahead.
It's less of a blog than is a newsletter. So it's a newsletter. It mostly goes to your email. There is a web version of it, but it's a newsletter. I decided to write that. For about 10 years, I wrote the wrestling blog, and I had a lot to say about the wrestling industry. And then this year it was between the pandemic and between so many different people in wrestling being outed as scumbags. I sort of lost my taste for writing about wrestling, so I still wanted to write, so I wanted to diversify, and a lot of my friends online had newsletters they wrote about various things. So I decided I was going to, I didn't want to constrain myself to writing about wrestling anymore. I write about sports, write about food, write about sports, and other various things. I decided to start the Mental Health Break, which is a 3 times a week newsletter, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and I write about different topics every day.
Yeah. Huge Dallas fan. Love the construct of that team. I really do.
For all these years. Good Lord.
Well, it was interesting.
I hate the Cowboys. I love the Stars. It's as simple as that.
That's important. I would have quit the show if you said you loved the Cowboys. I had a hard time rooting for the Stars in the Cup final just because they had Corey Perry, and
Understood. Understood. Anaheim fame. So people don't understand.
For several years, I had partial season tickets to the Flyers, and I would try to take somebody to each game. I took a friend of mine to a game against Anaheim, and for the entire game, all he did was complain about Corey Perry. Oh, the guy's such a, he's so dirty, and blah blah blah. He scores 50 goals, but he's a jerk, and it was quite funny. Not quite as funny as the guy I took to a Buffalo game, and all he did was complain about Tyler Ennis, which is really weird because it's weird.
Why would Tyler Ennis is he's like a Christmas elf. Tyler Ennis is like the reincarnation of Danny Briere, but smaller, and a good player.
Yeah, he's a good player, but
he's a good player. Like he's not like top notch, but why would you hate Tyler Ennis? Like they just draft short Canadians that can shoot. That's what Buffalo does.
Look, maybe it was something personal with Tyler Ennis. I don't know, but he
I don't know. I like Tyler Ennis. I'm mad at your friend because he didn't like Tyler Ennis.
Well, now hold on.
I know you like 210-pound people that can shoot that are 5'2".
You're comparing Tyler Ennis to Danny Briere, and I think Danny Briere is a hell of a lot better player than Tyler.
No, Danny Briere okay. Hot take right now. Danny Briere is the greatest midget that ever played hockey. That's all I'm comparing to. Short dude. I'm taller than him, and I'm not that tall. Love the dude. Met him a couple times. Awesome dude. I'm just saying, but when Buffalo brings those dudes out, Tyler Ennis was like, I was the next step because I was like, Buffalo brings short, happy goal scorers. So I feel something for Tyler Ennis because I like the way he plays, but he's shorter than Danny Briere. So if I think Danny Briere's short, I'm definitely gonna think Tyler Ennis is short.
Oh, that's so funny.
I like short, and I also like short players, so I'm okay with that.
Well, being a short player yourself, I can
I
understand.
was a Pat Falloon fan.
I know you were.
You don't get any
yeah.
smaller than Pat Falloon. For him, I'm gonna get. I know. I got the key players, but these young guys, like
You're treating him like a rookie. That's all good.
Yeah,
That's all I mean.
he's a rookie point guard. What are your thoughts about him? From what I saw, I love him.
He was fluid. So it was like everything just seemed natural to him. Like I was weirded out by like the floaters he did, and especially in the first. But it just to him it was like, I know like that's a shot that I can make. So he was like, all right, like bam. So like if that's your game, cool. Because he just he just had a whole lot of confidence, I think. That like it wasn't like the game was too big, like how they say the game wasn't too big for him and the moment and all that. Like it really wasn't for him. Like he just went out there and just do what I do at that point. And I think that's a testament to him as a player and also him coming out, obviously working under Calipari and all that. Because I forget, it was like a couple weeks, maybe a month ago, where they like totaled how much money Calipari has made like players in totality, like from like NBA contracts and all that. And the number is astounding. I think they did it over the last 7 years, not even 10. Like they did it over the last like 7 years, something like that.
The only 7 years, so they didn't even do the UMass years.
Yep, and they didn't do. I think they did a. Yeah, so there was some other player I forget on it that they waived off for it. I think it was Rondo. Apparently, I think they waived Rondo off. I don't for some player I forget 100%, but just seeing the number that he put out, I'm like, that's why you grab people from there. That's why you grab people from certain like that's why you grab a Joel Embiid from Kansas. That's why you grab a Tatum out of so it's like you stop like I like Philly when they stop trying to like overthink stuff and just go with what they should go with just because it's proven. But that's more football related, not as much.
No, totally. On that.
Oh, doing good. We have with us a very special guest. My father, Major General Wesley E. Craig, U.S. Army retired. Dad was the 34th Commanding General of the 28th Infantry Division. He also served as the 51st Adjutant General of the state of Pennsylvania. Dad, it's such an honor for you to join us here, and welcome to Two Noobs Talking. How are you?
I'm doing fine, Matt. It's good to see both you and John. Looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, likewise as well. So let's just dive right in. Really at the start, I mentioned obviously at the top that you served as the Adjutant General of the state of Pennsylvania. Can you briefly tell us like what an Adjutant General is, and basically what have you been doing since you retired back? I think it was in 2015 you had retired. So what have you been doing since?
Well, the Adjutant General, there's one in every state, and their primary job is to command the Army and the Air Guard that belongs to that state. In the state of Pennsylvania, and you're a government cabinet official. So I was on the Governor Corbett's cabinet, just like any other cabinet official there. And I had 19,000 soldiers and airmen under me. And in our state also, they tie in Veterans Affairs. So I ran what was called the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. I had 6 retirement homes across the state that I supervised as well for veterans, and we had about 1,400 residents. They all 6 ones offer all 3 levels of care. Just domiciliary care, and then skilled nursing and memory enhancement care as well. All 3 levels of care. And just have to get in there, you just have to be a veteran. And it's based on your ability to pay. So I had to supervise all that. Any programs that the legislature passed, outreach programs, support programs for veterans, and then of course run the Pennsylvania National Guard.
Mm.
So what I've been doing since retirement, figured I was too young to sit on my hands, and so the military for me was a watershed moment. I served for 42 years total.
Mm.
Retired from it twice. Once after I left Division Command, with 4 years retired, and then came back to become the adjutant general. Now I've been retired for almost 5 years.
Mm.
But I do a lot of volunteer work, and it's primarily emphasizing veteran support or support of those in the Guard and Reserve. I served on the board of directors of the USO for more than 10 years, and I was the project officer of the USO where we built the new USO center down at the Philly airport. I was the one in charge of that.
Mm.
Twice I was the acting president. So I was full-time, 5 days a week employment, running the center in Philadelphia, plus several other satellite centers. And I guess I did 4 months till we lost one president, till we hired the next one. He only lasted for about 6 months and bailed out. And then I was asked to come back in again. I did that for 6 months. And then we picked out the president who served for about 8 years. So I worked with them. I also then became the chairman of the board of the USO for 3 years and ran the whole organization.
Mm.
I also became the state chairman for employer support of the Guard and Reserve, ESGR as we call them. And our job is to build that bridge between the service member of the Guard.
Let's move on to, so you have a copyright. It's your first ever copyright. And for people that don't know, you dabble in law.
I'm an attorney, so yeah, I guess I should dabble occasionally.
You're a bit of an attorney. So let's talk about, because we're gonna put it up on the screen. It's gonna be up there, so I want you to talk about a little bit about your copyright, because we definitely want to give you love for it. It's on your shirt right now, but we're gonna put it up on the screen. So it's on the screen up there. So just talk about how, like, the design of it, where it came from, and then the whole copyright experience, because we definitely want to get involved in understanding that kind of concept, because it's what you do.
Right. So this was, my brother passed away from an opioid addiction in 2012. And we got together, you guys were involved in playing a hockey game in his memory later in the year. And we were going to have shirts made up, and our mutual friend, Bill McNally, set that up for us. And I had to come up with a design for something, a logo. So my brother, Alex, had this stuffed animal. It was a rabbit named Fred. And, it's sort of a family in joke. Fred was sort of a crazy, weird character. Alex would make him do this weird dance, and he would have all sorts of really sadistic, weird ideas. I've joked with my parents and my other brother, Glenn, with the whole hockey thing. It's like, well, if he was making the rules, he would only play high sticking. There would be, if you touch the puck on the ice, that's low sticking. That's a penalty. You can only put the puck above your head. So I decided to do that, and I drew it. I drew Fred with a goalie stick and a goalie glove, and I sent it to Bill. He got it on the shirt. The next year we did it again, and I put water bottles on it. I put his picture on the water bottles that gave out to all the players, and then a couple of years, like a year or two ago, I was like, we haven't done anything with him in a while, so I'm just going to make these shirts, which I got. They say Fred Hockey on it, and they have him.
Nice.
And I had our family bought a couple. My parents got a couple, and then I earlier this year I added some more selection as shirts. There's like colors, and I have long sleeve shirts and hoodies now. And I had some cousins down in Atlanta who were interested in having some. And I'm thinking like, oh, well, this thing is starting to kind of go nationwide. I better protect my design. So I filed a registration at the copyright office, and 2 months later, just before Thanksgiving, I got a notice that it was received or was accepted. So now anyone who copies this, I think it's like $250 a copy they'll owe me. It's
Nice.
There you go.
a lot of people don't know, as soon as you create something artistic,
Hmm.
and you put it in what they call a tangible medium on a piece of paper,
Hmm.
on a DVD, you publish it on the internet, you have a copyright. You just can't sue anybody in federal court until you register it.
Hmm.
That's sort of the step. So, it was cheap to do. So I was like, what the hell? Why not? And then I could say I own a copyright, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
So
it's done. Yeah, that's awesome.
So where can we get hoodies?
where can you
Where
get?
can we get t-shirts?
You
have
let
it set
me
up?
know. I did this. I have to thank Custom Ink is the website.
Okay.
I did it through them, and their process is pretty sweet. If people are interested, just let me know, and I can set up an order sheet.
There you go.
Cold temperatures and all that, but
Yeah.
I'm adjusting well from Virginia, from where I
There
was
you go. There you go. Great to have you with us. It was something we've been really looking forward to talking a little NBA as the season's coming up. Starting a truncated season, I think. I think it's on Tuesday or Thursday this week or something along those lines, right before Christmas. But wanted to kind of just bring you on, get your thoughts, and just talk a little bit. How did you first start following the NBA, and talk a little Sixers and where do you think things are going? So let's just start right from the top. Like, how did you first started following the NBA? When did you first start follow the league?
So it's kind of like a two-part thing. Like when I was younger, I was always like the Kobe versus AI kid, to be honest with you. But it was always from afar. Like my dad was more involved, and I was just watching him watching the games most of the time. Like every once in a while, like there was one time where we went to like, I had a club box with the cheap pizza down at the stadium and all that. We would always go down there and watch him, but he would always be the person to get tickets, but find better tickets in the parking lot. So he would be the one scouting out. So I'm like, you know what? Nah, let me see if I can find that something real quick. But that's how it started off, and then it kind of tapered off a little bit. Once AI started going to like the Nuggets and kind of left Philly, it kind of tapered off. I grew up. Not that I grew up out of basketball, but grew up and like was doing other things. I was working a lot at that point, and my first job working at Acme, literally of all places, like out is like sports hell. Like you can't like listen to anything for real, because everybody's coming into the grocery store right before to go watch sports. So I didn't really get back into my love into sports until after like I was done with that, started doing like grown men jobs, like warehouse jobs, like full-time jobs and all that. And my first full-time job is where it all started falling in love with it, because we had a TV before and like after and during breaks where we would watch literally all of ESPN highlights and all of that of the week before. And a lot of people there were into it. So like they would just start talking about it. And then of course I just start getting wrapped into it. And that's where my whole love with like sports radio came in, with like 97.5, 94, but I normally just listen to 97.5 most of the time. But just my love with that, just because that, and then like music, you just get tired of hearing the same stuff every once in a while. But for the most part, that's where my whole fandom came back to it, was just listening to like different people talk about it while being able to finally watch it for once, because I was always working during like football games, basketball games, and all that. It's like when you're doing like 3 to 11:30 shifts, it's crazy. And you're like, yeah, like, did you see this? Like, what game? It's kind of like a game.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, I would hear about the Eagles games and stuff like that. But nah, like I'm baking Italian bread for these people to come in to make their meatball subs to go watch it with. But it was definitely like a fall in and then fall back in love with it kind of thing, I guess.
But I think for me, my match was I was always sort of wrestling was in my periphery always when I was younger. As a kid, I had the rubber LJN Galoob figures, the Andre the Giant with the big fro, Hogan, and then Junkyard Dog and Iron Sheik posing like this.
Oh yeah, dude.
But I think the match that sort of made me stick with wrestling was WrestleMania 7, career versus career. The Macho King Randy Savage versus the Ultimate Warrior. And
Wow.
other than outside of that match, the Ultimate Warrior I've always found to be a dog shit wrestler. But it's something about that match. Something about Randy Savage just brought out the best in everybody. He brought out the best even in like Flair. He brought out the best in Hogan. He brought out the best in everybody. And it's like that match sort of where Savage was doing everything short of, pulling out a gun, shooting Warrior to try and save his career, and it didn't work. And then Warrior just sort of like, and the one good thing that he did, the one thing Warrior ever did in the match was he couldn't put away Savage, and he's just looking at his hands like this, and for some reason I felt it,
Yeah.
and it was just such a tense struggle, and then the aftermatch stuff where Sherry is just sort of angry that she lost her meal ticket, and then Liz comes out of the crowd and she's like, "Get your hands out of that!" It hooked me. The whole spectacle.
Just going to say one of the best photos I can remember was when Pennsylvania had 2 back-to-back devastating hurricanes right through the center of the state. I think it was the first year of your adjutant generalship. And there's a great photo of this active guard soldier carrying this woman who had pretty much like lost her home, lost her car, whatever, and she was stranded. And it was just a beautiful shot of him just carrying her to safety. And it's just like, you want to talk about selfless service, it's that kind of thing that happens all the time in the Guard. Yeah.
And a little more elaborate on that story, that sergeant was in a boat crew, and they got to this girl's house, and they took her out of the second floor window because the water line was up to the second floor. She walked down the roof of the porch onto the boat, and then they traveled for about a half mile, so they got where he could pick her up and carry her the last couple feet through about 6 inches of water to dry land. Yeah, that was quite the story. Yes,
amazing.
We did a lot of that.
Yeah,
beautiful story. So let's move on to what been near and dear to my heart. Been doing some research on the VA, how much it's changed over the last couple of years. My first question is kind of, what was it like while you were serving? Because I hear a lot of horror stories. Maybe not horror stories, well, some horror stories, but I hear a lot of it's gotten better, it's gotten better, it's gotten better. So my question is, what did it kind of look like before?
Yeah, when I was serving in, say, throughout the 70s, really to the 90s, the VA primarily was being concentrated on World War II generation, which was aging. So slowly over time, they became experts in geriatric medicine because the great bulk of their patients were guys that fought World War II. So in the 80s, these guys were already in their 60s. In the 90s, they were in their 70s. And now 2000s, they were in their 80s. So they were very much concentrated in geriatric medicine. And then there was another controversy at about the same time with Vietnam veterans, and that's Agent Orange. Agent Orange became known eventually as a carcinogen. It was originally billed as doesn't hurt people, it just kills plants. So, when you see pictures of what it does to plants, you think, I don't know.
Yeah.
So they concentrated on that, and they had to be forced into taking care of Vietnam veterans with Agent Orange diseases. So they didn't have a very good reputation. It was like where the old people went, and that kind of thing. All the younger veterans of service weren't exposed to combat at that point until Desert Storm came along. So now, then along comes Iraq and Afghanistan. Now you get guys, the primary thing is missing limbs. Well, they were way behind the power curve and hadn't really done hardly any of that since right after World War II and right after Korea. I mean, they really didn't do much of that, a little bit after Vietnam, but they were really behind the power curve. So that gave them a really bad reputation with the current generation of Iraq and Afghani veterans. So after a number of scandals, including some of the famous ones out west, where I think it was Arizona, where they were phoning up the waiting time and phoning up records that looked good, the whistle got blown on them. And I interviewed Secretary Shulkin, who was not the current one, was one before this, and he really started to shake up the troops. He was empowered by acts of Congress finally to fire people who deserved to be fired, who were causing this scandal out in Arizona, who were phoning up records. So was able to hold a lot of people accountable and got rid of people who were dead wood. That was a big improvement. And then he left, and Secretary Wilkie is now the secretary. I met him as well. He's a veteran himself and a son of a veteran, very much engaged and has been able to continue on that. So now when I talk to Iraqi and Afghani veterans who go to the VA, I would say 90% of them say they have a very good experience. The VA really worked to reinvent themselves, to be much more customer friendly, turn it much more into there's two ways to approach a problem. No, I can't help you, don't bother me. Or, okay, I'll try and find a way to help you. And that's obviously was permeated the VA, and I credit Secretary Wilkie and before him Secretary Shulkin for installing that. It makes all the difference in the world in the VA. They've expanded, they've concentrated and done some remarkable things in conjunction with Walter Reed Army Hospital on rehabilitation of missing limbs, artificial limbs. It's just incredible what they've done. And they've not been strangers also. They worked on this COVID-19 thing. I had a friend of mine who was in the one in Philadelphia for a week with COVID-19. He's in his 50s. He's back out on the street. He's fine now. So
Awesome interview with the question I wanted to ask. I've actually asked you on social media before. We've had these conversations, but I'd like to get this on the podcast. Let's talk about this sports and social injustice that sports has finally figured out that humans had a problem with for many, many years. Is sports decided to join in. And I want your opinion on, because I have a very, very, very hard opinion on it. And my opinion is very simple. For me, I'm not buying your stupid hat. Because where were you 20 years ago? And it's a big turnoff to me with sports. It's not like I don't watch sports, but I'm not like, oh, the NFL is so awesome because you want to bring us all together, or the NBA is so awesome because you finally decided to turn your marketing towards, people matter. And that's kind of I want to pick your brain a little bit about it, because it's a divisive subject in a lot of circles.
I feel the same way. Like, it was well overdue, but at the same time, the one caveat I will give is that there's always that percentage of people that will preach the keeps politics out of sports kind of thing. And when you get like enough of a following of that, you kind of like, as a sports entity, you kind of have to like cater to that to some degree. So like, a la radio shows that talk about sports, whether it's just the games in general and all that, I get it, because then you lose viewership and you'll see that in the statistics and all that. But at this point, it got to a point where all that didn't matter, like the loss of viewership, etc. and all that, because once you started showing that you were against all the things that were happening at that time, like, or still, like with Black Lives Matter, social injustices in general, once you started seeing people coming together with that viewership, there's another I guess another, I'm losing the words for it, like just another group of people that are viewing because of that, versus people just saying, oh, you guys should just stick to sports or shut up and dribble and all that. I mean, all those phrases and whatnot, when these still are educated people that are making millions. Just because they're making millions doesn't mean their opinions don't count. Their feelings don't count, because they wake up and do stuff just like you and me, like regular people. And if we want our opinions and values to matter, then you got to look at a LeBron James. You got to look at a person that's doing this. Yeah, they're on TV, so they might get to opinionate it more, but that's because of the situation they're in. Go ahead, get you a job that puts you on TV. You can do the same thing.
That's kind of, and to be honest with you, like, my love for, until I met Steve, my love for hockey, I don't think was at the level that it was for so long. Like, because me and Steve, like, he could tell you stories, just stories of shitty ranks, and I hate to cuss on this, but shitty ranks, playing like dump and chase devil stuff, because we used to like to hit people. So that's what we did. Like, and it was It was funsies.
Yeah.
And we would end the parking lot games in fights a lot, you know.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
Fun, not real fights, just
No, I like to talk trash, but I knew who I was going to be. I knew I wasn't going to be the best player, but I knew I could be an agitator.
Oh, that he was great at that.
Enough to agitate.
You were great at that. I remember playing a game.
I'm still good at that.
I was on the bench, and you were in the corner with some player on the other team, and then all of a sudden he dropped his stick and just punched you. We were all looking at each other like, what the hell did he just say to that guy? Because it wasn't anything physical you did.
Whatever it took.
Whatever it took.
Well, everyone, we hope you enjoyed those clips from our 2020 year. John, it was such a great pleasure being with you during this year. And where can people find us, man?
Socials, we've got Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you want to watch the video of us, it's YouTube, BitChute, Rumble. I love saying BitChute. Audio podcast, we have Apple, Spotify, and everywhere else. You just search it. It's Two Noobs Talking 215-512.
Awesome. And of course, like with our show notes, of course, those will be found TwoNoobsTalking.wordpress.com. We'll have all of our links and descriptions there for any of our future episodes as well. And John, I guess to sign us off, do you have anything else to say?
Don't go down the rabbit hole.
I'll try not to. Everyone have a happy and a very healthy new year. We'll look forward to talking with you in 2021.